Good morning and welcome to another edition of Fridays with Phillip. Today is October 25th, 2024, and I'm glad you're here. My name is Phillip Cantrell, those of you who don't know me. And if you've not seen this program before, let me kind of give you a sketch on how it plays out. We do a little bit of housekeeping for Benchmark here in the first part. We talk about company numbers and then also marketplace numbers. And then we're going to move into an educational section. And the educational section this month has to do with some forms issues that we are seeing as a pattern since the August 17th changes. So you want to stick with us all the way through that. But let's get started first of all. I want to bring to mind the fact that you're obviously watching this on our YouTube channel, and you'll want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you get a notification whenever something new comes up, and you can see the address right there on your screen at Benchmark Realty LLC. We're getting a lot of views on these videos. The last couple have had 1,000+ views, so obviously we're bringing valuable content, so be sure and subscribe there. First up, a little advertisement for Momentum Title, our sister company, which has residents as processors in every office. We have 6 attorneys on staff. It is an attorney-owned company, so there's always an attorney during your closing. And we have some benefits for benchmarking. So there's no fee on your first closing, no fee on your personal home, no fee on active military, 50% off on veterans and first responders, 50% off on your personal properties, investment properties. And then if you get both sides, there's only one closing fee split between the two sides. Now those no fees apply to the closing fee. They don't apply to the insurance, the title insurance, which those rates are all set by the state of Tennessee, so we don't have a choice on those numbers. Send your business to orders at momentumtitletn.com or deliver them to your processor in your Benchmark office. We have one in pretty much every Benchmark office that's available to you. I'm going to move on now to say thank you for attending the October 4th Expo. It was a great event. Jared James was the keynote speaker. He delivered a tremendous, impactful message. We opened this thing up to all licensees across Middle Tennessee. In fact, we probably had about 45 agents who were not with Benchmark who attended simply to have exposure to the 70 exhibitors who were there of quality products in our industry, and then also to have access to Jared James' mind. He's a brilliant individual. He spoke for an hour and a half, and he probably could have gone another hour without any problem at all. It was that good. One of the big things we did was the value awards. These value awards, we have never in the history of Benchmark, in 19 years of Benchmark being in existence, we have never done an awards program. Production awards, or if you want to do that, go to the association. But we gave awards based on our value and mission statement that we have on all of our conference room walls. The 110% award, the Guided by Faith award, the Family First award, the John Giffen award, and the Be Better Be Benchmark honorees were all recognized either with trophy or certificates on stage. The 110% award was won by Marcus Mikasobi. This award is for our first line item on our vision statement is we will deliver 110% of our clients' expectations in every real estate transaction. And we felt of the quality nominees that you see on the left, that Marcos in this case stood out as a superior provider, because this guy works sometimes as much as 2 and 3 years ahead of time with people to get them qualified for mortgages. So he really does a good job, and he's an outstanding fellow. But again, we had some excellent nominees, and he was indeed a hard choice. The next one is Guided by Faith Award nominees that you see on the left, and Carol Thayer was given that award. She is working through stage 4 cancer right now and has been very vocal in her faith walk journey during that process. So we honored that with this award, felt that she exemplified the Guided by Faith. Family First, another one of our vision principles, that our families will be first in our lives. And we felt that Adam Helton, in this case, of the quality nominees that you see on the left, that Adam Helton stood out there. He has, his father was in the business, his brother's in the business, he's in the business. Now his son is coming into the business as well. And if you walk into Adam's office, you can see his whole walls of his office are just covered with photographs of his family and drawings that his kids have made for him. And every Sunday, he can be found teaching 3-year-old Sunday school at Judson Baptist Church. So he's a really good guy. You should get to know him if you don't, for sure. Finally, the John Giffen Award was given to Linda Seaton. We had several people there that exemplified what we believe to be the principles that John upheld. And if you don't know John, he was the very first principal broker that we hired once I stepped out of that role and gave it to somebody else in 2011. John was the fellow that I hired to fill those shoes. He was an educator, he was a nurturer, he was a counselor, he was always happy to see you. And we felt that Linda and her background and expertise best met those qualifications. So congratulations to Linda. And then we had the Be Better Benchmark honorees. We had 2 from each office, all of who exemplified what it means to be better in what we do. There were many more nominees, but those were the honorees that we gave them to, and 2 from each office. And most of them were there. There were a few that didn't make it, but they're all quality people. And this, the fact that we didn't do production awards, that we gave value awards, gathered some national attention. PR Web picked it up, Riz Media picked it up, and the fact that we were actually giving away awards based on values and principles, not just on production, and that was a big deal. And then in the end, our team put together a highlight reel, which is kind of interesting and fun to watch, and I'm going to show it for you. And hopefully it will generate a lot of FOMO among those who were not there, so you can see what you missed. As you can see, there was a lot of good stuff going on and a lot of fun was had, and we had a great meal as well. So hopefully that incentivizes you to stay tuned for next year's event, which I don't know how we're going to top this one, but next year we're going to top it and make it bigger and better. So stay tuned for more information on that. It'll be about October. It'll be in the fall of 2025 when we do that again. All right, just a reminder here that we do have a Bowling Green office. We are open, blowing and going. We've got about 30 licensees that have Kentucky licensure, that are either home office in that office or also have a Tennessee license and they're in another office. But Cole Melcher is the principal broker there. So if you need him, you see his phone number there on the screen and his email address. If you have any questions about Kentucky, just drop Cole an email and he will answer them for you pretty readily. Another reminder that our Dixon County, or our Dixon satellite office, satellite workspace is now open. This is a unstaffed, unsigned workspace. We have computers there, we have copiers, we have printers, faxes, we have places to work. So if you are in that area and you need to meet a client, there's your place to go meet your client. And it's a push button code door lock on the side door, so you need to reach out to Victoria Thompson, whose contact info you see on the screen there, to gain access to that should you find yourself in that area. Also, another reminder, we now have Alabama license. So if you have an Alabama license and you want to move to Benchmark, we have the ability to accommodate that now. And we don't have a physical location inside Alabama simply because they don't require it. And our main purpose here was because we had people who already had Alabama licensure that were Benchmarkians. Website is really coming along well. We're continuing to improve it. We have invested a pile of money in this, and a reminder that if you get an email from no-reply@unionstmedia.com, that is a lead contacting you on your listing on our office, on our website. Our deal is your listing, your lead. We don't harvest those and try to send them to an ISA team. These are your listings, your lead. That's how it works. So you need to respond to that immediately. There is no delay. As you know, with website leads, you've got about 15 minutes. After that, you might as well forget about it. So pay attention. We spent a pile of money advertising your listings. Please make it worth the time. It's all about helping you sell properties. The TAP program has returned, and this is an interesting thing that we started. We've done it a couple of times before. Now we're picking it up again, and it's going to run through February 28th. This is for talent attraction. So if you have an agent on the other side of a transaction you think would be a good match for Benchmark, talk them into joining us, bring them in, talk to the broker, talk to Bo Zvac. If they do come on board, they will get $500 marketing credit on the Bullseye Hub for sign changes and business cards and that sort of thing. But you will get $500 within a couple of weeks after they've joined, and then after 90 days of affiliation, you'll get another $500. So you get $1,000. The only stipend there and the only caveat is they have to have had 5 transactions in the past 12 months, verifiable on RealTrax. So that's kind of a lower standard. We started out at 12, then we went to 8, now we're down to 5, and we're still paying $1,000. So it's a good opportunity to supplement your Christmas money. And even if they don't have the 5 transactions required, if you think they would be a good match for who we are as a company, bring them in and talk to them, let them talk to Bo Zvac. And if they do join and then we do decide that they are qualified, you'll still get $300 after they've been here for 60 days. So just to be clear on those programs, though, it's an either or type thing. Either they qualify for the full TAP program and you get $1,000, or if they have less than 5 transactions, you only get $300 only. But it's $300, right? Which is, and remember that the TAP program itself, the 500 plus 500, and then they get a $500 credit, only goes through the most on board by February 28th. So put the feelers out, put the talkers out. They're joining not only a quality organization in Benchmark, but also a quality organization in United Real Estate. As you know, we have the highest agent compensation in America now, according to Mike Del Prete. And he went around and looked at all of the fee-based revenue models, and we deliver the highest amount of each dollar in commission back to the agent. We're the fastest growing brokerage in America. We're in the top 0.01% of power brokers, and we are now on the Inc. 5000 for the 8th time. And it's your effort and your work that got the entire company there as well. Team effort. One of the things that we have brought because of those successes is that our financial wellness program, which is an effort to prove to you that our commitment to your well-being goes beyond just the transactions. We characterize it in 5 columns, and we talked about this quite a bit, but I want to run through them really fast here, just so those who may not have heard about it fully before can hear about it one more time. So column 1 is we give you all your money, 100% commission, right? Column 2 is insurance. We have created a problem, not a problem, we created a product with Clearwater Benefits to offer 1099 independent contractors the opportunity to purchase insurance. It's kind of unheard of because I had tried to do it independently as Benchmark for years and I could not do that until we had the clout of United Real Estate behind us. Column 3 is financial literacy, teaching you how to manage money. Through Smart Dollar, column 4 is wealth management, how to manage the money once you have it through creative planning. And then column 5 is going to be coming on later in the year in 25, and it's charitable reinvestment. We are actually in the process of setting up an educational scholarship fund for your kids. You'll hear more about that when it happens and when it comes, but right now I just wanted to put it out there. So let's walk through each of these really fast. The first one is 100% commission, and you can see the blue graph that you see on your screen there is the chart from Mike Del Prete's research, and you can see that United Real Estate returns 96 cents of every dollar in commission to its affiliates, unlike Fathom, Real, Realty One, EXP, and the others that you see on down there. Those that are so highly touted, such as Compass, they are maybe returning 80%, even with all of the add-ons that they have. So we're giving you all your money, and then we're giving you the opportunity to secure your ability to make a living by making sure that you have healthcare in place. We have health share, PPO networks, dental, vision, catastrophic accident, critical illness. Really comprehensive program, including Amaze Health, which is teledoc type stuff. And it is a good program to be on. I am actually on it myself, which is kind of unique because technically I'm an employee of United, but I don't participate in their program. I participate in this one. That's just personal choice. Note that you have been getting, and you will get a lot of email, text messages from United Healthcare, and that is not this program. This program is ureghealthcare.com. Go to that website. If you're already on, and set up a time to talk to them. If you're already on a better plan, they will tell you you're on a better plan. They will not burden you with a lot of text messages and marketing. So there are different plans that you see there on the screen. United Real Estate Group Healthcare, and then United Healthcare. They are not the same animal, so don't mistake those, please. Pillar 3 is Smart Dollar. This is a Ramsey Solution product, which is a mobile product that you can set up, teaches you how to set up a budget, teaches you how to manage your money. It teaches you about money, period. There's lots of educational material on there. There's lots of budgeting tools on there. You cannot obtain this product on your own. You can only get it through an employer, which we provide this for you at no charge. And everybody says usually their first response is, well, I already know about money. Well, clearly you don't, because Americans are still drowning in debt. 17.8 trillion is now the total consumer debt nationwide, and it continues to rise. It is a historical all-time high. People are living way beyond the means. Total debt is up 109 billion in the quarter just ended. Think about that for a second. 109 billion increase per quarter. We will be at 20 billion just like that. And it works. So far, year to date, the participants of this product have experienced we're $30,000 shy of $3 million financial turnaround. 1.2 of that roughly is debt eliminated. 1.8 of that roughly is savings accumulated. So it teaches you both. One thing to understand about debt eliminated defined means that you paid the truck off. It doesn't mean that you made the truck payment this month. It means that you've eliminated that debt. So it truly is debt paid off. And as of today, we're at 1,408 users. Looking forward to seeing that 3 million. And a reminder that all of your information is 100% confidential. We cannot see your banking information. We can only tell what you put into the system that you've eliminated. We help you, we see your budget dollar amounts, but that's about that. We can't even see that, but the system can see that. And all of your details are kept secret and secure. Easy to sign up. All you have to do is go to the dash and click on that little light bulb $ looking thing tile down there, or you can hit that QR code. The company keyword is UREG. It will ask you for that. And emphasis on this, that you must use the email address that we have on file. Otherwise, it will reject your application. So use the email that we have on file at Benchmark. And when it asks for company keyword, UREG is what you want to input. Once you have some funds accumulated, we're going to connect you to Creative Planning, which is one of the foremost wealth management firms in the country. They have billions and like 250, 260 billion assets under management now. We'll connect you to Brandon Severino. Brandon is, you can see his contact there, or you can hit that QR code. Once you have some funds built up, just tell him what you need. Tell him that you're there, and he will connect you with a fund manager in your area. So as a summary, there you are. We don't make any money off of any of this except for the healthcare benefits. We make a very small amount per each policy that's purchased there. And that fund, instead of going on our P&L and just calling it extra income, we are putting it into the charitable reinvestment. We're accumulating that money in a separate fund, and we will be using that for scholarship fund later on. Smart Dollar, for example, costs $180,000 a year to provide that to our affiliates. So my point is not to shame you, but to get you to lean in on these products, that these are not stock swap gimmicks. These are products that are developed because we are concerned about your whole being, your whole family, your whole financial wellness. It's a key component of who we are here at Benchmark. So please take advantage of them. All right, shifting gears now, let's do some company numbers. And we're going to talk about September. Even though you're hearing this at the end of October, we don't have all of October's numbers in yet, but we do have all of September's. So let's talk about September's. In September of last year, we had sold you collectively had closed $330 million in real estate. We'd paid $8.6 million in commissions on 702 transactions. Our average sales price on that transaction price was $470. At the same time, the market had done 2,775. By greater market, I'm talking about the greater Nashville MSA, which is Davidson and the 7 surrounding counties. That's the market comparison that we were doing, which is the greater Nashville area. So how did we do in 2024? Well, we did pretty good. Gross sales were up, gross commissions were up, transaction count was up. The market was down though, and our sales price moderated slightly. The one that we really focus on is this comparison right here. Is how did benchmark do compared to the market? And as you can see, we beat the market by 12.7%. That's a pretty big number, boys and girls. That's a pretty big number. You should be really proud of that. That's what our main comparison is. On inventory, month-to-month inventory was down slightly, but year over year it was still up 26.3%. At the end of September, we had 1,712 active units on the market, and our affiliate count continues to increase. We're at 1,704, an 11.4% increase at the end of September year over year. Sorry about that. My throat's getting kind of dry. One thing I will point out, though, is that our affiliate count now at October 23rd, when I'm recording this, is now 1,725. So we're increasing. We're continuing to see that trend of increasing. And now with the TAP program, hopefully we can see an acceleration to that as well. Graphing the data that I just gave you, you can see the red line there. This is gross sales 2017 to 2024 for benchmark, not for the market, for benchmark. You can see the pattern, the seasonality of the patterns, and that's why I show you this. Same thing with gross commissions. Of course, they track right in along there. And then on transaction count, you can see it hiding in there behind 2023. So we're tracking pretty close. Interesting stuff. So how do we do year to date? Well, at the end of September in 23, we were at 2.9 billion. And at the end of September in 24, we had 3.3 billion. So we're quite a bit more, and you can see the transaction count is up 4.3%, but the market was down 4.9, which means again you beat the market 9.2%, which is pretty good thing to talk about. The national market update, shifting now to the national markets and how things done. We just got the existing home sales numbers in this morning, and you can see that they are down a little bit, down 1% month over month and down 2% year over year, to an annualized run rate of 3.84 million. And if you strike a line across there, you can see that we're just continuing to bump along the low point of December 23. One of the things that we want to kind of keep an eye on, and I just really don't think we're going to get above 4 million this year, but we'll see. We are now at the lowest seasonally adjusted rate since 2010. So in 14 years, this is the lowest run rate in 14 years on existing home sales. However, the preliminary view of contracts that are pending, which is closings in the future, right? It appears that we're going to have an uptick in this month, in October, but we'll see. Right now, the 10.2% more single-family homes in contract than there were at this point last year. We'll see at the end of the month, at the end of October, how things worked out, or really we'll see on the 28th of October how things worked out in September. That data that you're seeing right there is actually for the first part of October as well. So things are trending up, is my point. Existing prices are continuing to increase, but the increase rate is moderating. You can see that you have, this is September 23, this is September 24, and you can see how it runs across here that we're actually, the home prices are still increasing, but they're not increasing anywhere near as rapidly as they were before. But we continue to set records, it seems. Inventory, national inventory, obviously, 1.3 million homes on the market, actually 1.4 almost, and that's a 1.5% increase month over month and a 23% increase year over year. So inventory is continuing to increase, and you can strike a line across there and see that very visibly. And by the way, side note, this is the first month that we've had a inventory absorption rate north of 4 months of inventory in many, many years. So that's a good thing. It's now 4.1 months in inventory. It's a good thing, but we're still stymied by the interest rates. It's still stymied by this election. If we can just get this year behind us, I think we're going to be okay. But man, it's like watching cold molasses right now. And then moving on to the national single family inventory, there's 33% more homes on the market, more properties on the market than there were at this time last year. So inventory nationally is continuing to move on. For sale inventory in Nashville is still high, or is rising, but it seems to have kind of plateaued a little bit. You can see the number there on the screen. Home value index, you can see here, is still holding at 439. It's kind of bumping along that plateau there. This is what we want to avoid. This is what we don't want to experience again. For home owners, it's great to have that kind of equity. For home buyers, it sucks. Plain and simple. We'll get past that. It'll all work itself out. The weekly showing activity rate, according to Showing Time, now granted, Showing Time is not the only showing service in the country, but you can see that it actually has had an increase there and is kind of bumping along above where it has been in years past. Certainly above 2022, so that's good. And then thank God that you live in the South, right? Because according to the EHS report this morning, 45% of all homes sold in America were sold in the southern region of the United States. Thank goodness you don't live in the Northeast. They're down to 12% now. I guess everybody that's getting out has gotten out, and the rest of it are going to stay. Good for them. Okay. Now let's move on to the forms, the problem areas that we've seen since the August 17th changes. Some of this is going to be a little bit redundant. Some of it is going to be an epiphany for you. Some of it deals with problems that we've seen all along that weren't unique to August 17th. So let's dive into that. First of all, a reminder that you must have a written agreement before showing a property. This is not optional. And that's why we created the touring agreement for somebody who you don't want to sit down and have the full bore buyer rep presentation with. But you've got to enter into the buyer rep and the buyer relationship before you, the buyer representation relationship before you actually go and do a contract. Just a caveat here that this does not replace the buyer rep agreement. It is a preliminary form. The buyer rep agreement is critically important. Remember that you must clearly state buyer broker comp and that comp is fully negotiable. This document must predate the offer. Comp cannot be open-ended, and you cannot accept more compensation than what is noted in the agreement. This is information you already know, information we've already covered. One area that's come up is, what if I use the touring agreement to show the house and then they just want me to facilitate? I do not enter into a buyer relationship. Well, what you're going to do in that case is put that in the special stipulation section of the contract. Okay? You're going to execute a confirmation of agency form, of course. And if you want to go ahead and turn in a touring agreement, that'll be fine too. But you want to be sure that you put it in the contract itself that you're facilitating. And that way you don't have to worry about the buyer rep agreement. The first form we want to go over is the listing agreement. That's the TAR form RF101 listing agreement. There are problem areas here that we've seen are related mostly to the changes made to the compensation area. And to be honest with you, they're blatant attempts to keep things the way they have historically been done. And I think that's going to be a problem going forward, because undoubtedly this will fall under the scrutiny of those outside the industry. Anybody with some good Google search capability can find one of these forms online. It's not like they are copyrighted, but it's not like they're hidden in a vault somewhere. So if somebody from outside the industry wanted to see one of these, they could see one of these, and they're going to have some problems with some of the stuff that's in it. And the biggest problem I have with many of the TAR forms is that they are created by competitor committees behind closed doors. And that smells of collusion to me. I'm not an attorney. I don't represent one, so my statement should not be taken as such. But I believe that that's going to be a problem in the long run. So, what are the problem areas that we as practitioners need to be aware of? And here we are, primarily on page 2. And I have it highlighted here. This is a good thing. They have the seller concessions, and this is section 6 that I'm reading from. Seller is hereby notified that a buyer may request certain concessions in any offer to purchase, and it lists them. And the last of which, it says buyer, broker, compensation, etc. Okay, so I'm going to put a plus sign by that, a check mark. That's a good conversation to have, a good comment to have in there. The next section is not so good though. This is the cooperating compensation section. So you have section 7, which is your compensation as a listing agent, obviously. And then the next section, it starts on 68, is cooperating. And if you go down to the part that I have highlighted there, this percentage shall be taken for the percentage agreed to be paid to the listing broker. What changed in this form from the way it was written before? Nothing. They just reworded it. That does not, in my opinion, as a practitioner, does not adhere to the spirit of the rules as which they've been issued under the NAR settlement agreement. But that's my opinion. And hopefully your broker will understand what you're asking when you ask this question if you're not with Benchmark. If you're dictating in the listing agreement what you're going to share of your own commission, what changed? Why is that not still guaranteed shared compensation? That's going to be a problem. So I'm going to put an X by that. My suggestion would be in this line right here, so just put a line, or to be negotiated, okay? That one right there, it's up to you, but if it were me, I would strike that out, okay? It's up to you and your client, but you have my advice and my word on it there. The next section is this big section down here. If you read this carefully, it talks about in the event of ready, willing, and some of this verbiage has been in there for a long time, which I get. This part right here, in the event this occurs, meaning the listing gets canceled, seller agrees to compensate broker in an amount equal to the compensation which would have been due and owing broker. Then the next section, it says, should the broker consent to release the listing prior to the expiration term of this agreement or any extensions, seller agrees to pay all costs incurred by broker to market the property as agreed to by parties as a cancellation fee. What that means is that if you're going to charge any sort of cancellation fee, you must put it in special stipulations of this agreement, or you may not charge it. Otherwise, it's going to land in our lap, and we're going to have to be the bad guy saying, yeah, we've got, X amount of dollars invested in this, so you, departing client, need to pay us this money. That is a no-win argument, and I think that's a bad decision to have that in that document. So I'm going to go with an X on that one. It's up to you how you want to structure your business. I get that, but this talks about the broker. That would be us, okay? So if you have a question on that, please consult with your principal broker on exactly how to word that. I'm just issuing caution notes here. This one up here, I would definitely strike a line through that, and I would definitely strike a line through that if it were me creating the listing agreement. So those are the main issues that I have with the listing agreement. The rest of it was just pretty much boilerplate information. That is, these forms are evolutionary. They're created by committees over a number of years, and every committee member feels like they have to have input, even though it may not be something that needs to be changed. That's why we have a 12, 14-page document, when really it should be 3 to 4 pages. But anyway, moving on to the purchase and sale agreement. There's only slight modifications due to the August 17th rule changes. The way the form is used has changed, and I'll explain that in just a second. But the form itself really didn't change all that much. So only slight modifications, and we'll address those. One of the points that I want to bring to the surface here is line 144, title expenses. This section of the purchase and sale agreement is probably the most misunderstood portion of the document that ever existed. So let me start by saying what you see on the screen there. By default, neither the seller nor buyer have title expenses allocated in the buyer expenses and seller expenses paragraphs. That's in D1 and in D2. So title expenses are not addressed in these paragraphs. That's why they created a line here for you to write that information in. So it's imperative that you put something correct in that line. Correctly specify how the title expenses are be allocated and who's to pay them between the parties, and how much is to be paid by each party, okay? Without this distinction, then basically your contract is silent and it becomes a problem negotiation point at the end. Or somebody makes an assumption, and then we've got a whole different set of issues there. So this is not new. That's the point. This is not new. It did not change because of August 17th, but it is highly misunderstood. So let's dive into it a little bit more. What goes into line 144? That's a question we get asked a lot. And here are your three basic options. This is appropriate language. Seller to pay. I pulled up about 10 contracts the other day out of our system, and I looked at it, and every one of them had seller to pay. Seller to pay what? Okay? What amount? Okay, if seller is to pay all the title, the buyer gets to pick the title. He can pick the most elaborate title policy you can imagine, which is about a 20% differential between a standard policy and an enhanced policy. But if you're not specifying which one, then that buyer can pick the enhanced policy and the seller has to pay for it because seller to pay was the verbiage used. The preference would be the next two that you see, seller to pay title expenses to include a basic owner policy, buyer to pay additional cost of enhanced owner policy if elected. Pretty straightforward. It's clear, plain English language. And if you don't want to specify that, then you can use the third bullet point you see there of seller to pay X dollars toward title expenses, buyer to pay the remainder. So you've been very clear in who is paying what and how much they are paying. And that line 144, as I said, is probably the most fought over line in the purchase and sale agreement since man walked the face of the planet. What we see a lot of times is confusion issued. We have a line 144 seller to pay, and then somebody's trying to be illustrative, and they insert on 151 through 154, they insert each party to pay their own closing costs. These terminologies are in contradiction to each other. So first of all, 144, seller to pay what? All right, you need to define it, not just seller to pay. And then 152 kind of negates everything else. It just throws total confusion in there, and it tells the title agent, these guys don't know what they're paying, these guys don't know who's paying what, so we're going to have a negotiation point 2 days before closing. And that's not really where you want to be on a transaction. So clarify here at the bottom sentence, or bottom paragraph. Section 2D, 1 and 2, that's the buyer expenses and seller expenses right above this line, establishes the default for who pays which expenses. Line 144 is to specify who pays what and how much on the title insurance, okay? Lines 151 to 154 should only be used to alter the default that's printed above. You don't know what the default is unless you have read it, understand it, and can explain it. So you must do that. Understand what they're saying in those paragraphs. If you don't understand, talk to your principal broker, talk to your title agent, get an explanation so you have it fixed in your head when you're writing a contract and talking to a buyer client. If the language above, meaning the language that you see there in red on line 152 is included, it makes a title company think the parties may have intended to change it, even though this line specifically says nothing. To ensure a meeting of the mind and avoid misinterpretation of the issues or interpretation of the issues, a best practice is to push back by figuring out what's intended by the drafter, the person that wrote it. If no change to the default is intended, then there's no need to include each party to pay their own closing costs. Okay? And we see this exact illustration time and time and time again, or some version of it. So I want to kind of implant that in your head that this has historically been a problem and it will be going forward unless you actually sit down, read the paragraphs immediately above, and understand them. That's section 2. One item that did change recently is line 424. In Tennessee, all contracts are automatically assignable unless specifically stated otherwise within the agreement. And now with this version, they have defaulted to non-assignability. So don't assume that just because 2 years ago it was automatically assignable that now it is, because they've inserted a clause in the contract that said it is not assignable. You can't send this contract to a flipper and they can take it on and close it for you. So just something to be aware of, because I wasn't until I actually sat down and read the whole thing. And then lines 499 and 502. We see this one over and over and over again. Exhibits and addenda, section 20. Be very careful what you write in here. In fact, I would advocate not writing anything in there. According to TCA 47-2-725, the statute of limitations on a contract is 4 years. This is a real estate contract, is 4 years. The statute of limitations, however, on the property condition disclosure is only 1 year. When you make the PCD part of the contract, you automatically extend the statute of limitations on the PCD for the 4 full years of the contract statute of limitations. That may not be what you want to do. So be aware of that. And as we have said in the past, you don't really need to add anything into exhibits addendum. And then finally, writing in. 5, this is the special stipulations section, section 21, lines 504 through 514. This is where you're going to write your commission in for the buyer and the seller to negotiate back and forth on how much you as a buyer's agent are going to get paid. This is the preferred best practice of this, and we're going to dive off into this here in a minute. But we've already created a company clause for you. It's in plain English. Seller shall pay X amount or percentage of the purchase price of the property to selling broker. And it even further defines that the broker assisting the buyer at closing. It's plain English. It's simple. It's right there. And you put that in your offer, and then the buyer and the seller negotiate that out, and then it's part of the contract. And the contract clauses, as you know, you click on the blank in either transaction desk or dot loop, and then do the drop down of company clauses, and you'll see selling broker, parentheses, broker assisting buyer compensation. Click it and drop it in, or just write it down and then write it in. So if you're doing that, this form becomes a problem. You don't want to execute the RF702 compensation agreement. I said it before, I said it again. It was a mistake to leave this form in the forms library. This form needs to be eliminated and not used. If buyer rep compensation is negotiated inside special stipulations of the contract, this form is not needed. Period. End of conversation. You never, never, never do both. You never insert it in special stipulations and do a compensation agreement. Are we clear on that? Why? What happens if the contract changes? Your buyer broker, your compensation agreement still remains in place. You could wind up working for nothing. Or it could be perceived as, well, you've got 2% in the contract, 2 pizzas in the contract, and you got 3 pizzas over here, so now I'm getting 5 pizzas. And we've had that situation arise, and the other broker held the agent's feet to the fire, and they wound up working for about 2 pizzas less than they intended to work for. This form is a confusing, useless, worthless form at this point. I couldn't be any more clear than that. Why? Because compensation is now inside the offer itself. So buyer broker compensation is determined by a buyer representation agreement and then negotiated within the offer between the buyer and the seller. Go look at my previous writings with Phillip. We have talked about this ad nauseum. Seller can pay the buyer broker can pay the buyer broker. It can be negotiated within the purchase agreement, which is the preferential way to do it. Or the listing broker can still pay the buyer broker, but it really gets cumbersome. Just make it clean, put it in the offer, be specific on who gets paid what, by whom, and when, and do not use the comp agreement if comp is detailed within the contract. I can't say that enough. And the other thing I'll comment on is that there is still a mind shift out here, particularly among other brokers, of wanting things to remain the way they were. And you need to stop. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to cause conflict. You're going to lose business. You're going to potentially run into legal trouble. You need to embrace the shift from the broker-centric model to the consumer-centric model. The buyer broker sets their fees and services to work with the buyer. The listing broker sets their fees and services to work with the seller. Offer negotiation of terms happens outside of the MLS on the compensation. And the purchase agreement governs distribution of all fees. It's got to have total transparency, and it can't have total transparency unless it's within the contract itself. So I'm a big Stephen Covey fan. And one of Stephen Covey's comments, one of his main themes is everybody has a to-do list, but very few people have a stop doing list. So I'm going to give you a stop doing list here and make it as simple and as clear as I possibly can. Number one on your stop doing list is do not use the comp agreement when compensation is in special stipulations of the contract. That's the fourth time I've said that in this presentation now, so it should be pretty clear. Do not create a comp agreement ahead of the contract and send to a showing agent. In fact, we advise not using a comp agreement at all. Left the T off the knot there. Just put the buyer rep comp inside the contract. Let the buyer and the seller fight it out for you. If they can't come to terms, go get another house. Inventory is increasing every day. Do not ever send your buyer rep agreement to anyone except the client who signed it and benchmark compliant. Do not send your listing agreement to anyone except the client who signed it and benchmark compliant. And I have direct examples that we have multiple benchmark agents that have done both of these in the last 45 days. Stop it. Don't do it. That's confidential contract information that the other party you're sending it to, usually the showing broker or the listing broker, they're not party to that contract. Do not share that with them. That is a breach of confidentiality. All right? So stop it. And if somebody calls you up and says, how much am I getting paid? How much am I getting paid? How much am I getting paid? Your standard offer is put it in the offer. Can't be any more clear about that than I possibly can. Let me show you some real world examples because there is a lot of stupid going on out here in the marketplace right now. And it blows my mind. These are some text messages. The one on the left is one that I found from an attorney. The one on the right is actually a text message that one of our agents received. The gray is the other agent. The blue is our agent. Okay, so the first one, let's read this. Just finished in the event. A homeowner would like to come home. Agent says, thank you. How did it go? It was nice showing. Da, 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 da. This is the showing agent. My clients are going to pass, just so you know not to wait. Lovely home. I have to be honest in telling you that my buyers are looking at paying out 2.7% buy-side commission on their home they list to maximize their buyer pool and are not interested in paying for it again on their own purchase. And I've highlighted it there. This is the primary reason they are walking away from this home. The agent on our side, on the listing agent correctly responded. All you had to do was ask in the purchase agreement for us to pay your fee. I can't believe you just wrote that. There's lots of agents out here that are not being trained by their brokers. This is an actual text message that one of our agents gave to us. Hi, da da da. I'm verifying the sellers on the hunting question. Obviously, they had previous conversation going on. My sellers are willing to pay up to 2.5 buyer agent commission with acceptable offer. This is our agent, correctly so if wanted, if directed by the client, to volunteer what the seller is willing to pay. Do you have comps that would support that, so on and so forth, and then highlighted section down here from the other showing agent. It is being recommended by brokers that the compensation agreement to be shared between brokers prior to showing and putting in an offer is benchmark not recommending that. Not only no, but hell no. Don't do it. More so before an offer is put in, but not necessarily before a showing. But some agents, she goes on with this other Don't do it. Let me give you some more. These are real text messages from our agent. Okay, again, gray is the agent on the other side, blue is the listing agent, our affiliate. Starts out with what kind of comp agreement do you have on it? Everything is negotiable. Good answer. Okay, my broker's telling me we're supposed to have knowledge before showing. This stuff crazy now. I've shown 3 today, all 3 different. Our agent correctly responds, I'm always willing to help agents. I can call you and walk you through it. Let me know. Thumbs up from the other agent. My one today said 2% to buyer agent and others said 3%. And broker says I need a signed comp agreement. Crazy. Our agent correctly says you need a signed buyer rep. There's so much false information out there. Your broker is wrong. There is not an automatic signed comp agreement anymore. Continuation, same conversation. Different agent, I'm sorry, different showing agent, different property. I have an offer to send you, just need to know about commission. Sorry, I've been told I would get offers, but nothing in hand as of yet, and my sellers are willing to pay a buyer broker. Please just write in the offer based on your buyer's rep. Thanks. Thank you. I've been told not to put that on the purchase offer. These are brokers telling agents to not put their commission inside the agreement. Can you take a quick call? Sure, they talk about it. I emailed the offer. I'm sorry it's so low, but they wouldn't listen. LOL, that's okay, so on and so forth. In this final text message I want to show you, are you working offers on blank? And I've marked out the property address so you can't look it up. Not at the moment, but I just had a lot of showings. Okay, I'm going to show it tomorrow to my buyers. What has been feedback? And then talk about that. One more question. What are you offering comp-wise? I have been instructed not to show homes without knowing what is being paid in commissions. That is steering by brokers to their agents. That is wrong. Everything is negotiable. Please write it in your offer. You can see every time the steadfast refrain from our affiliate was just put it in the offer. We can negotiate it out. That way there's total transparency. Okay, well then I'll request 3%. And the perfect response was, you do you, boo. And I thought that was beautiful. That was beautiful. So if you're interested in, if you're a listing agent and you're interested in communicating the fact that you have negotiability, maybe you can save some of this going back and forth with misinformed agents and just toggle the switch on that indicates your seller's willingness to negotiate on the RealTrac seller's concession field. Or in private remarks, put something like courtesy to buyer broker, or even create a flyer and add it to the docs on MLS. Welcome buyer brokers in response to the NAR rule changes, so on and so forth. Notice the word commission is not used anywhere in this. You could even put it on a sign writer, courtesy to buyer brokers. You don't name a dollar amount, you don't name a percentage amount, you don't even use the word commission, courtesy. The concept is simple. You must embrace the shift from a broker-centric model to a consumer-centric model. Again, buyer broker sets of services, listing broker sets of services, offer negotiation happens outside of the MLS, and then the purchase agreement governs distribution of all fees. If you create a compensation agreement and you have fees in special stipulations, that creates a conflict. Don't do that. That's the 5th time I've said the compensation agreement is wrong. Stop doing list. Again, ends up with your response to inquiring agents is put it in the offer. So hopefully all that makes sense. That's kind of the wrap of what we've seen as a result of August 17th. Now we want to move on to some general housekeeping stuff. So if you're a non-benchmarkian, you can kind of clue out now, but the rest of you stay tuned because we want to talk about some document submission issues, notes that we've had. What you see on the screen there is our sales and purchase checklist. And what we're seeing coming into the pipeline are miscellaneous scattered docs being submitted individually. And in some cases, it causes a lot of confusion, and it certainly causes a lot of manpower to process those documents correctly. When at the same time, I want to point out that right across the middle of this form is please submit in the following order in one combined PDF document. When you do that, it speeds up our processing. We don't make 1 penny more if you submit 25 separate documents or if you submit one document. But we could sure process it a whole lot faster. So please help us there. There are 2 other forms that for whatever reason, TAR decided to not put an address line on, and it causes a lot of confusion when they hit individually, not part of a package. So neither of these docs has an address line on it. You can see there on the front, the buyer rep agreement and the disclaimer notice. They don't have an address line. So when you send that in separately from your one transaction file, we have no idea which transaction this belongs to because everything we do is filed by transaction address. So without an address, compliance has no idea which transactions these belong to, and they may very well get deleted, and it could very well hold up your closing because we don't believe that they were ever submitted or we don't know they were ever submitted. So as you see, as I have drawn out here, just write in or type in the address of the property it applies to. Be very helpful for us. The other thing we're seeing a problem with is the closing checklist. As we explained in orientation, this is the checklist that when you submit it triggers the processing of your closing. And yet what we are seeing is this entire form being sent in to working docs on paperless pipeline, when at the top it says what? Do not send this form to the pipeline. Email or deliver this form to the office admin where the commission check will be arriving. It's right there on top of the form. Do not send this form to the pipeline. This form does not go to the pipeline, and if it's sent there, we will delete it. And then you're going to be sitting there wondering why you're not getting paid. It's because you didn't follow the instructions on the form. We give you all your money, so we ask you to stay about a half a step closer to us to help process these documents. And you have to understand, we will do about 10,000 transactions, 10,000 closings this year. And our compliance process all of those, plus all of the failed closings, plus all of the listings. So if you want to look at a rough number, they're going to be looking at about 20,000 transactions this year and all the different components that come together with them. By taking these simple steps on your end, which literally take 2 seconds to do and follow proper process, it speeds up that process and makes it much more efficient, helps us keep from hiring additional people, which helps keep your fees low. So help us help you. Okay? A word about E&O. Some of you are already renewing your E&O. At the end of this year is when you must renew it. So it has to have a new policy in place before January 1, because your current policy expires December 31. And for whatever reason, Trek has decided to do all of this year's renewals on 18-month cycle instead of a 2-year cycle. So it's going to be 18 months. I assume it will be prorated accordingly, but it'll be 18 months. And then in July of 2026, I guess, yep, July 1 of 2026, you'll renew for another 2 years. So they're moving the renewal date from the end of the year to July. That's what it amounts to. But be aware of that. That is the only option that Rice is giving us, is giving you, is an 18-month renewal. You don't have any choice, so it is what it is. I don't know about the other insurance policies. You might want to check in with them if you're using something other than Rice. You'll want to check that policy and check the date and make sure you're clicking the right button. One last thing. Back in May, you received an email from Realtor that looked like this, what you see on the screen. The subject line was Realtor requirement for Realtor access removed. Probably got all excited about that. And the key points are that as of April 1, 2025, the requirement to be a Realtor at Realtor access is removed. However, association dues are January 1 to December 31, so that means you still must pay your 2025 dues. Since the existing rules state that you must be a Realtor to have access to MLS, if you don't pay your dues, they're going to kick you out. And not only that, they're going to penalize the broker, jeopardize loss of MLS access for the entire firm. So don't put us in that position. It's not going to be a fun conversation. But do rest assured that we are working on a plan to have fully in place by early 25 for those who wish to not remain a Realtor. That would be, if you're not a Realtor, you don't have access to TAR forms. That's the big one. The other one is you don't have the ability to use Realtor. So that means you might have to get your business cards reprinted. I don't know. But our plan is to provide the forms, and we're working on those. We've already engaged the attorneys. We're working on those now. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that paying the dues before January 1 is not optional. Next year it will be. Next year you can do what you want to do. But for 2025, you need to go ahead and pay your dues, please. All right. That's about all the fussing at you I can do for one day. We try to make this as simple and just boil it down as easy as possible. So hopefully you'll find it helpful. And if you don't, reach out to us. We'll modify and adapt as we go through it. So thanks for attending today. If you have any questions, just hit me up and we'll go from there. Have a great day.